How's it going, everybody? I'm Ryan, he's Abby, we're the Expansion Bros, and we're here with an emergency episode for you guys as there is a massive trade to announce. The Canucks have traded forward Andrei Kuzmenko, defenseman prospect Hunter Bristevich, and Ioni Yurmo, a 2024 first-round pick, and a conditional 2024 fourth-round pick for Calgary Flames forward Elias Lindholm. And I'm sure the question everybody has on their mind right now is, how does this affect the Buffalo Sabres? No, I'm kidding. Abby, how are you guys feeling over there in Vancouver? I'm pumped for you guys. This is exciting. I love this trade. This is a swing you guys, I think, should have made, and I think you guys did pretty well. But how are you guys feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good about it, I had mixed feelings at first, and I'll say straight up, because Kuzmenko is very beloved by this fan base. He's only been here a year and a half, but quite frankly, he's really endeared himself. He has a lovely smile. He's always having fun, and he had a really good season last year. So it was unfortunate to see him struggling this year, and it kind of became apparent, right, with his cap hit and with his value, that if we were to go for any big pieces like Lindholm, who we mentioned, Jake Gensel, Noah Hannafin, etc., that he would have to be the piece involved, as sad as it is. But I'm very, very excited to see Elias Lindholm here in the Vancouver Canucks. Swedes tend to play better in Vancouver, and I know he's currently on a down year, but he's someone who could maybe get his game going again, playing with Elias Pettersson, who would be the best teammate he's ever played with. No shade to prime Johnny Gaudreau or Matt Tkachuk. Matt Tkachuk really hit that next level when he reached Florida, and I think Pettersson is on a higher level than Matt Tkachuk was when Lindholm, Tkachuk, and Gaudreau were together. So Pettersson will be Lindholm's best teammate, and it looks like they're planning on putting that directly replacing him on that Mikheyev line, except moving Pettersson over to the wing and having Lindholm and his 55 face-off percentage in the middle along with Mikheyev. And that line all of a sudden does become a very strong defensive line, and Lindholm also potentially could take on penalty kill time, which I know he's done in Calgary, as well as fit in on that first line power play, kind of giving them that we talked about in the previous podcast. The Canucks have that great four-man unit of Besser, Pettersson, Hughes, and Miller. And we've kind of had Kuzmenko, or we've had Pius Suter, or whoever it is kind of as that fifth man. And maybe Lindholm can be that seamless fifth member, that first power play unit to really help it hit that next level as well, even though it's already been quite good.
Yeah, and you mentioned the power play. I was going to talk about something else for 1 second, but we'll stick with the power play. I'm just looking at his power play points, right? Here's a guy that can score double-digit power play goals per season, right? Not this season, right? Because the season's not done, but the last, I think, 5 seasons, he's been on pace to score double-digit power play goals. And then power play assists. I mean, he also gets double-digit power play assists every year he was in Calgary, except for his best season ever when he scored 42. So I can't really blame him for passing up the pass and taking the shot, right? And you mentioned that this is going to be his best line. I think this is the best team Elias Lindholm has played on.
Yes.
In a long time, right? We mentioned that he was a runner-up in the Selke voting, that 42 goal season, right? We're not that far removed from it. Now, if you take a look, some advanced analytics, his WAR has continually declined, right? It peaked in 2021, 22, and then last season, and then this season continuing that trend downward. But so have the Calgary Flames, right? This is going to be maybe one of those rising tide lifts all ships. Elias Lindholm now playing on the best team he's ever played on, with the best teammates, best line mates, right? Not having to be asked to play 20 plus minutes a night, right? I pulled it up. He's playing 20 minutes and 45 seconds per night this season. Right. And maybe if he can get down into more of that 19 and a half, upper 19s, like he was, a full minute less per game, I think maybe you can unlock the best out of him here. I think this is a slam dunk trade. It's kind of, you needed a guy like this. You let go of Bo Horvat. I think Elias Lindholm provides a little bit more playmaking upside than Bo Horvat did. Somewhat similar styles, but also dissimilar in the way they play, right? There's some similarities, but it's not like a like-for-like replacement.
Yeah, I would say Lindholm's definitely stronger defensively, which is the big thing, right? This team is big on defensive responsibility, and I think Lindholm is better about that than Horvat is. I'm not sure what the analytics would say about that, especially with Horvat in Long Island right now. But at least I feel Lindholm will have a better fit, and I also think Lindholm is very versatile because he can play both the wing and the forward. And I think, if the Canucks want to put the lotto line of Besser, Miller, and Pettersson together, you can put Lindholm on that second line and use him as that 2C, or you can play him with Pettersson, or you can play with Pettersson and Mikheyev. Kind of what Lindholm offers is just a ton of versatility, right? When the playoffs come around, injuries are probably going to happen, and you need to be able to shift people around. That's why someone like Pius Suter is great, because he can play on the fourth line, he can play on the second line, he can play on the first line in a pinch. Same thing with, like, again, you never want to break up the third line, but players like Garland and Dakota Joshua and even Phil DiGiuseppe, right? They can be moved up, down, and around the lineup. And that's why the Canucks have been able to be so versatile. Höglander, another example, someone who played on the second line for a long time over this year and leads the Canucks in 5-on-5 goals. Lindholm fits in well with these pieces because he can be shifted around from first line winger, first line center, second line winger, second line center. He just fills a lot of needs for the Canucks and allows them to stay versatile in case injuries happen or in case they fall into any sort of slump, and they can move players around to find the best fit.
I'm excited for this too. I keep diving into the stats, right? You mentioned the best fit. I think this is a perfect fit, right? I think this is like peanut butter and jelly going together, right? Bringing Elias Lindholm to the Canucks. Apparently trading with the Flames is your thing now, right?
Yeah.
But you mentioned what he can do and what he can provide and everywhere he goes. You looked at his best season, his individual high danger chances for were absolutely through the roof. And it's something I've talked about on this podcast many times with you guys, is how many high danger chances you guys create. It's astronomical. It's leading the league, and you guys convert a ton when you get those chances too. So I think, you look at him, his high danger chances for, they peaked then. His best seasons have come when he generates a lot of those, and playing in a scheme where he can generate those with teammates that allow him the freedom and space to generate those. He's a great high danger chance player, and you guys are a great high danger chance team. I think there's another level. I think I might be getting a little too excited here, but I think he can get back to that 21-22 form rather than the Elias Lindholm we've seen for the last season and a half here. And maybe, add more goals to the Canucks. Is that a thing? Is there more goals in this team? Well, there is now, I think, with Lindholm, but
I agree. I think sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna mention defense. Let's wrap up the goal scoring here, though.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is, right, like, we weren't utilizing Kuzmenko this year like we did last year, right? Like, normally trading out a former 39 goal scorer would probably mean a decrease in offense for your team. But I think that just means we get to move players like Pius Suter down in the lineup, and keep Lindholm, who will hopefully complement Pettersson quite well, or complement, Besser or whoever he ends up playing with well. And I think you're right. I'm certainly not expecting him to go back to 40 goal season or Selke season, but if he could even just get to, like, part way what both those seasons were, improving his defense back to above average and maybe hitting that 25 goal mark, I think that'll be plenty. With a team, like you said, that already converts on high danger chances and has so much offensive firepower.
I got more connections for you back to that 21-22 season. His PDO, the on-ice PDO for the Flames when he was on the ice was 105. What other team has a 105 PDO? So look at so. Again, there's only so much you can link with this stuff, but I think that Lindholm needed this change, right? Needed to play in a system like you guys play, needed to play with players that you guys play with. And I think he's actually, like, he doesn't get talked about enough like it, but I think the more and more I dive into these stats, the more and more excited I get. If I am now a Canucks fan, right? Again, over the last 3 seasons, his quality of competition is in the 96th percentile, meaning he's played tougher competition than 96% of the players in the league. Like, he is not getting easy shifts out there, right? And this still includes his 42 goal season, right? So part of the reason why, he may look like he's struggling over the last couple of years, he's playing that tough competition. The quality of his teammates is also declining, and they're leaning on him even more. He can get some of that pressure taken off of him here with the Canucks, and I don't think he's going to be looked at as the guy. Now I know Huberdeau is there as well, but Huberdeau's not taking any weight off. If in fact he might be putting more pressure on
He's at
a guy
20
like
pounds.
yeah, right. And then Nazem Kadri is fine, but he's not the kind like those are like the line mates he's playing with. Right now he gets to go play with Mikheyev and Pettersson, and they don't even have to be line one on every night. You know, you guys can roll your third line as a first line because it can do that. But then you've got the Sutter, Miller, and Besser line, right? So those two lines can split the top 6 minutes evenly. And God, I really am just getting overwhelmingly excited the more I talk about this trade for you guys.
Yeah, I think this kind of leads into this management team in general. Like, if Jim Benning made this move, I'd be scared. Like, oh my God, look at all the assets we gave up. But there's a certain confidence I think myself and other Canucks fans have in this management team to where they've made these moves and they've made them in a calculated form. You know, they've made this trade well before the trade deadline to give Lindholm enough time to acclimate before the playoffs. And I think I look at the bubble team that almost got to the conference finals, and that was a good team. But I look at this team and I think it's better. And quite frankly, this is the best team we've assembled in who knows how many years, at least since 2011, 12, maybe before that.
And it's not just on paper either, right? You guys have always had like decent or good teams on paper, but they never really perform like it. This team is a great team on paper, and it's playing like a great team, and you just added a potentially great center to this team. It's awesome. Like, you should be excited.
And should be noted that recently extended Patrick Allvin 3-year extension. Did not waste any time swinging for the fences. Which I think which I appreciate. That's a gutsy move.
Well, when you have an opportunity like this, they don't come around all that often. When you get a chance to you guys are going to make the playoffs, right? When you get a chance to make a run, though, you got to make that run, and you got to take that calculated risk and do the scouting and understand that just because a player A is good here doesn't mean he's going to be good there. You know, we had discussions last season when the Sabres traded for Riley Stillman. You guys hated him. He was tank commander for you guys. Yet he came here and he was decent. He was decent for the second half of the season. He wasn't like, oh my God, get this guy off the roster. It was, he's physical and he plays fine on the third pairing. And a lot of that, I think, goes back to the system. You know, the anecdote that I have with that is us as Sabres fans were like, wait a second, he's been terrible on these couple teams. But if you look a couple seasons back to this Florida team that played a similar team or style to Buffalo, all of a sudden, like, that was a good year for Stillman, right? That's kind of where he got his foothold in the NHL, is because he fit that scheme. We look now and that those high danger chances, the opportunities for him, the way he creates, right? It matches up with this current style of the Vancouver Canucks, which I think is huge. I mean, it's great for Lindholm. He might be able to go on a 30-game run here, tear it up, and then go get paid because somebody wants like, hey, he was a 40-goal scorer a couple seasons ago. Calgary became a dumpster fire. He got out of there, and all of a sudden he was back on like a 30-plus goal pace, and he does well defensively. Like, let me get that guy. So I think this is great for Lindholm too. And to be honest, I don't think you guys gave up nearly as much as I thought you would have had to.
Yeah, and I'm someone like we as Canucks fans are quite emotional a lot of the time, and I think
you don't say.
Our first reaction was maybe this was a bit much to give up, but I think as time has gone on, my feelings changed over a couple hours as well. And
gut reaction is always that you're going to give up too much. You know, like you look at, oh my God, we gave up 6 assets for Lindholm, 5 assets. I think it's 5 assets for Lindholm only. And like, oh my God, we gave up so much. And I like this guy and he's having a great year in there, But it's like, I would rather take the established 40 goal scorer. I mean, you had that technically in Kuzmenko, but you know what I mean.
No, I agree. Kuzmenko was not being used properly in the system, and it made sense to ship him off. I know his value isn't at his highest right now, but looking at this trade, I would say Kuzmenko probably was the main piece. I know we also gave up a first-round pick, but the real upside for Calgary here is Kuzmenko and trying to keep him. He's signed for this year and next, and if they can keep him, I think he very much has that first-line sniper potential. So if this trade works out for the Flames, it will be because they retain Kuzmenko. They also got a 2024 first round pick, which again hopefully will be a very late first round pick. And I want to give a little shout out to the associate dean of the BD School of Business, which I attend. He's did a lot of research on the value of draft picks in the late first round as opposed to the beginning of the second round. And essentially, what the research he did was that if you don't have a player that you're particularly super high on in that 20 range, you should basically always trade down. So using that logic, we basically only gave up a high second round pick value wise. That's a slippery slope argument, but I'm going to use that to make myself feel better.
Right, and you're talking
and
about the
then-
value of draft picks, and if we just want to look at the historic success rate for each round, this analysis was done back in 2020, but the percentage of players drafted in that round that play 100 or more games. In the first round, it's 74%, right? So 3 out of 4. Obviously, it's probably skewed to the higher guys get more chances just because they're the higher guys, right? If you guys are picking 25th or 32nd, let's hope, right? That becomes closer to the second round player, which then drops all the way down to 34% of players drafted in the second round play 100 or more. You guys gave up a conditional fourth, which is 22% of those players play 100. The condition on the fourth round pick, I know some of you may be screaming like, what is the condition? It's if you guys make the conference finals, it becomes a third, which 27%. So it only goes up 5% more players play 100 or more games. So looking at the value there, you may have given up a guy that's going to play 100 or so games, right? You technically, if we do the math, right, we add the 74% to the 22%, you basically gave up one player worth 100 games played in the NHL with those two picks.
And perhaps that's simplifying it a bit, but I agree. I think even like especially if we have to meet the condition is met, we've made the conference championship. I think very few people are going to be thinking like, oh no, we gave up a third round pick. Oh, boo hoo. I think a lot more people will be like, holy shit, we're in the conference championship for the first time since 2010-11. That'll be what's forefront in the mind. And then just want to talk about briefly about the prospects the Canucks gave as well. We mentioned the 2 picks and Kuzmenko. We gave up defensive prospects, Hunter Brunskevitz and Yanni Yermo, both of who notably are unsigned. So that's good for Calgary that if they are interested in signing, they'll be able to essentially start that ELC timer a little bit later on. However, at the same time, there is a little bit of caution I would take there, just because you never know if you have like a Jimmy VZ situation or those other unsigned draft picks that just end up leaving. Granted, I don't think Brunskevitz or Yermo are quite
can. Yeah, he's in the OHL. I think that's a college only thing. You can after they graduate, they can go wherever they want. I don't think the same can be said for CHL players.
Yep, you're right. Sorry. But yeah, Brunskevitz was actually leading the OHL in points for some point for all players, not just defensemen. I think he's slowed down a little bit now, but still leading his team. And he projects to be kind of a top 6 offensive defenseman, obviously. But I think me and Ryan were talking about this a bit before we started the pod. Is we don't really know how his game's going to project to the NHL, and especially he just ends up being, top 6 defenseman. That's not exactly a high price to pay. And kind of same thing goes for Yanni Yermo, who's seen as similar but not quite the same level as Brunskevitz, and he's more of a two-way or defensive defenseman. Has that kind of 7th D potential. But where you get to see again.
Looking at Brunskevitz, he's putting up 69 points in 47 games played, which is amazing for an OHL. Yes, for a defenseman, he could hit 100 points this season. But at the same time, as a 19-year-old in his second season, right, he put up 57 last year, 57 and 68. So this season already doing much better, playing for the Kitchener Rangers. The scouting report on him is the kind of prospect who might end up on the third pairing, even at even strength, but should find a home on one of the power play units, right? So he's one of those guys that can probably play third line minutes. I think he can cap out at like a number 4, right? as your defenseman, but also quarterback your second power play, which I think is still valuable. But then you look at
definitely.
Yanni Yermo, who is already 21 years old, is not playing well in Liga. And the scouting report that I'm reading on him is, at this stage, Yermo adds organizational depth and could become a recall defenseman in time. He will never produce much offense, but he's a compete consistently and takes up space kind of guy. So, I mean, yes, you gave up 2 defensemen that you took in the third rounds, but Yanni Yermo is already 21. I know defensemen develop later, but at this point, the fact that he's not really doing well in Liga doesn't give me any encouragement that he's going to come over to the AHL. He just feels like a body. And again, what I feel like you guys gave up in this trade is quantity rather than quality, right? We always talk about the first roster player and an A or B level prospect. That's kind of what I expect with this kind of trade. So we got the first, we've got the roster player in Kuzmenko, which again, I don't, if I'm Calgary, I'm shooting for somebody younger. You know, I'm shooting for like the Hoglander or things like that. Somebody I think could slot in higher if the team wasn't so good, because I don't think Calgary needs a 27-year-old. I think they need a 24-year-old. I mean, I don't know how old Hoglander is, but that's in my mind what I think Calgary needed.
Hoglander's pretty young, yeah.
Plus, an A-level prospect. I don't really consider a bottom three defenseman and a second power play quarterback to be that level prospect, right? I might have asked for a first and then a young player and Elias Pettersson. Maybe they did ask for it and they didn't negotiate it, but I don't know. Personally, I don't really think Calgary got much that's going to help them out outside of the couple picks.
Yeah, I think maybe I see Kuzmenko a lot higher, right? I think, especially if Kuzmenko tears it up the rest of this year and part of next year, he becomes a huge trade asset that you could get a first round pick for and recoup even more assets. So I'm waiting to see, especially if he's going to be playing on that first line, right? If he gets Huberdeau going, all of a sudden this trade is worth it automatically because Huberdeau hasn't played with the proper sniper yet on Calgary. So I would I'm kind of a cautious wait and see. I'm happy with what the Canucks gave up in terms of, like you said, quantity over quality, but I wouldn't exactly sleep on the Flames' perspective of this either. I think Kuzmenko could be a major asset for them, who they either keep as a first line winger or who they trade next year for more assets.
I don't
and I think,
see. This is where we kind of disagree on Kuzmenko, and maybe it's your blue and green colored glasses you wear, and I'm wearing my blue and gold, so I see green too. But anyway, his shooting percentage last year, dude, was 27.3%. 27.3% shooting percentage. Now he's back down right now to a 12.7% shooting percentage. I don't really think he's gonna. I don't think there's a getting back to last season. We talk about systems and coach clashes, and he's had less opportunity. He's playing 2 fewer minutes per night, but I don't think that's going to drastically increase his shooting percentage playing extra 2 minutes. He's just going to get more shots and shoot, 12% as well. He's a guy that took 140 shots in 81 games and scored 39 times. So if we take that 143 and multiply it by, a 13% shooting percentage, he's probably a 20 goal scorer. 18.5 is what that comes out to. So he's not a 40 goal scorer. He's a 20 goal scorer that had a crazy high shooting percentage to me. I mean, unless they're going to play him first line minutes and then just give him a ton of volume and shots. Again, I think that him shooting 27% was great for his value, right? You guys totally benefited. Not only the fact that you guys got to see him score, but also the fact that now all of a sudden he's close to a 40 goal scorer. And can we unlock that again? I personally don't think there's an unlocking that again without giving him true first line potential. But as a guy that only scores goals, really, not a lot of skating, it worries me about his longevity as a bona fide top 6 winger.
And here's my thoughts on that, right? I think he's been working hard with Tocchet to work on that back check and get on defense, and that's been a bit of a struggle, but I definitely think he's actually learned a lot, and he'll take that with him to his time on Calgary. And the other thing is, right, like, the Daily Faceoff has him projected for the first line, and I think, who else are you going to play there? Right? Like, they don't have anyone else. They don't have enough talent. So I think Kuzmenko will get the volume, and I think Kuzmenko will be on pace for 30 goals. I don't think he'll hit it this year because he's had a little bit too slow of a start, but next year I think very well he can hit 30 goals. And in fact, I'd be willing to bet that he will.
It just makes me
and when
wonder
he's
if Lindholm can't succeed in this scheme. I'm not exactly confident that Kuzmenko can. Now, maybe I'm downplaying Kuzmenko way too much. And like I said, I think he can be, a 20, 25 goal scorer. I don't see the 30, right? If he's going to shoot, if he's a good shooter and he's shooting 13%, which is above league average, how many shots is he going to need just to hit that 30?
No, I see what you're saying.
He's going to need to be a 230 shot guy.
And maybe I'm a delusional Canucks fan, Kuzi lover, but I think he can do that. I think he can get that volume in Calgary if he's on the first line power play and if he's playing first line time.
I hope so. I do. I always come off with when I say these things as I hate these guys and I don't want to see him succeed. It's just I'm tampering my expectations that playing on a first line with Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau in a really, really bad, just frustrating Calgary Flames team, he probably fills a role that Lindholm didn't, sure, as the goal scorer, but I'd probably have to dig in more to Calgary, but that's not the point of this podcast. We're talking about the Sabres and the Canucks here, right? So Kuzmenko is definitely a guy that I think, shots per time on ice, whatever, we can do the math, off the pod, but I'm hoping that it's a win-win trade for both. I don't see the appeal here for Calgary. I see the first, and I like Bristevich, but the rest of it feels like we just got to say that we got more. And Kuzmenko at 27 can be a middle six goal scorer. Cool. Right. But we'll just shift away from the Flames here because we can have this debate all day long. It seems like Abby and I are not going to see eye to eye, but with Lindholm, I think like he fits you guys like a glove. I'm so excited to see how he plays. And plus, like you said, he gets the All-Star break here. You got February 6th. Tune in because I'm excited to see him play with you guys.
Speaking of, the Canucks now have 7 people representing them at the All-Star game. You have our original 5, and now you have Lindholm and you have Tocchet. So the Canucks, if it was a 5-on-5 tournament, could ice their entire side of the ice. The goalie, throw Lindholm or Pettersson on defense, and then along with Hughes, and then 3 forwards, they could literally ice their own lineup now, which is really funny.
It makes me wonder what Hughes and Pettersson are going to do at the draft. Are they going to be able to get all the Canucks? Is it basically going to be Team Vancouver?
That's true. That's a good question. They're definitely going to get sniped like we did in our little mock draft last episode where you sniped me on JT Miller. And Demko, that was the devastating one. That's my one regret from that draft, was not taking Demko first. But yeah, that'll be interesting. The other thing I do want to point out in terms of this trade, kind of the last thing, is that we, like you mentioned, we didn't give up quality. We didn't have to give up any of the Swedish prospects. You alluded to Hoglander, who, again, I'll say again, leads the Canucks in 5v5 goals, who we did not want to give up, and Calgary had major interest in. We didn't give up Lecker-Mackey, who's tearing it up in the SHL. We didn't give up Willander, who's our most recent high-level defensive prospect we drafted, and we didn't give up another member of his World Juniors team, Elias Pettersson. So just to clarify for anyone who listening earlier that Ryan wanted to trade didn't want Elias Pettersson to go. He was talking about the defenseman, of course, but also I would not have wanted the forward Elias Pettersson to be traded for Lindholm as well.
I would give up Elias Pettersson I would give up Elias Pettersson before I gave up Elias Pettersson, for sure.
Oh, I agree. You got to trade Elias Pettersson before you trade Elias Pettersson.
That's not going to get old, I promise. But I'm excited, man. Things are good. Life is good in Vancouver. And, this emergency podcast is basically half as long as our normal episodes go. So, let us know your thoughts. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to let your thoughts known in the comment section. If you're listening on Spotify, there's actually a Q&A section where you guys can go ahead and leave us your thoughts and comments there, or hit us up on Twitter at the Expansion Bros Pod. It's a lot of fun, guys. It's awesome, and this is exactly why not having a podcast focused on the Sabres is actually doable for me, because we can talk about fun things and winning. So thank you very much, Abby in Vancouver.
No problem. We're happy to have you, Ryan, and don't worry, your day will come, and I'll be here waving a Sabres towel for you. I promise.
For now, I'm going to go ahead and order my Elias Lindholm Vancouver Canucks jersey, and we will go ahead and talk to you guys in the next one.
Peace.